Folks, if you are in the real estate game, you know that insurance has been wild the last couple of years with crazy rent increases, slow time cancellations, all kinds of bad stuff. Well, good news, folks. I've been actively seeking working with an insurance carrier or insurance provider that could help landlords, help mom and pop landlords. And I have found the solution finally. Let's welcome the CEO of Steadily and figure out what his story is, what the platform's doing, and see if they can help landlords like myself. How you doing, Darren?
I'm doing great. Pleasure to be talking with you, Michael.
Well, first off, let's make the connection. Dana Dunford, our Thursday guest from Hemlane CEO, said, I've got to check out what Darren is doing at Steadily. We've had a quick couple of conversations with folks in your organization, and I think you have something that is going to help my community. Before we get into Steadily, Darren, I think your backstory would be very helpful for the audience because they will see themselves in your journey from that first rental property in Chicago to building a very small portfolio. Why don't you share with the audience who is Darren pre-Steadily and why Steadily was born?
I'm one of those guys that had always heard that real estate is the way to get rich slowly, and I always wanted to do it. So it was a matter of when, not if for me, and that when was 2018. I had used to live in Chicago. I thought it was a great market, found a property that I thought would appreciate and would cash flow. So I got a loan and bought it. It's one of those three-story walk-ups in Chicago that you've seen 100,000 of right off of Fullerton. And the minute that I got close to closing, I went to buy insurance for the property, and I could not believe how high the quote was. I was expecting about $1,000 a year, and they quoted me 6,000 after a week of waiting. I was just blown away. And for me, that was the beginning of a 5-year journey that eventually resulted in Steadily Insurance coming to be.
So let's kind of walk this up because a lot of brand new landlords get in the first deal, get in the contract, start getting quotes for insurance. It is, yeah, I don't know what it is. I've been doing this 20 years. It is a lot slower than it used to be. I used to go and put something in contract in 2002, 2003, and I would have a quote back in, I don't know, certainly by end of business day, the next day, and some days, the next morning. Now it's weeks, right? And again, I'm somebody who has relationships with multiple insurance brokers. I have a decent sized portfolio, so I get priority, and I think I get better assistance than most. And we're talking 7, 10 days. And then, oh, by the way, not only higher quotes than ever before, but I'm getting cancellation notices now and, non-renewal notices. And I don't know what's going on in the landlord insurance world, but it is more wild than I have ever seen. So and this is 24 years now. I don't know what's going on. It's pretty crazy.
I can tell you what it is. Everybody's scared.
They're
The
scared.
For the longest time, going back 20 years, homeowners insurance and rental property insurance, they were pretty tame.
Yeah.
You would, as an insurance carrier, they would quote a premium of 800,000, $1,500 a year.
Hmm.
Sometimes there'd be a fire, sometimes there'd be water damage. But all in all, they'd make a 7 to 10% profit,
Yep.
and like life would go on, and there were ebbs and flows, but it was pretty quiet. And then over the last 10 years, collectively, the insurance industry has just taken a bath on
Yeah.
property. I mean, they've lost billions and billions from one storm after another. That's just destroyed all of the profits that they had been made over the last 20 years. And I'm not talking just about Florida. That's what get the headlines. I'm
Right.
talking about hailstorms in Denver that will wipe out 10,000 roofs, and each one of those is a $15,000 check. So
Yeah.
a $15,000 roof replacement, that's 10 years of premium.
Hmm.
And so all of these carriers are looking at just the enormous amounts of money that they're losing, and they're pulling back like crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
we just heard that Progressive Insurance is pulling out of the state of Ohio entirely for rental
Wow.
properties, as State Farm and Allstate pulled out of California. Like it's just they're dropping like flies because they're all scared.
Yeah. When I look at the insurance carriers, obviously that's, something I've seen big losses, California where I am, those fires has really made it uninsurable in a lot of the state. But I also think there's a lot of insurance companies, again, going back and looking at their previous annual reports, they were taking their excess premium and putting it in the safest asset, which at the time was believed to be Class A office. And I think there's a lot of insurance companies losing their ass now on these once upon a time safe assets. And now they're looking at, their cost ballooning. And now they're looking at their kind of stream of income from these safe assets declining. And they're like, I can't tie this together. I've got to raise premiums or I'm going to go broke.
There's that too. I mean, it's not unheard of to see an insurance carrier say, "Hey, we're pulling out of dry cleaner business." And we're like, "Why? The loss ratios look fine." And they're like, "Well, because we lost a ton of money on our workers' comp program."
Yeah.
So it's to them, it's just a big pile of money. And they've got to make, at the end of the day, they have to turn a profit. And so if they're getting squeezed on one end, they'll have to pull back in another. And unfortunately, residential real estate is feeling some of that pullback.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love about Steadily and why I think our conversations will continue is you are 100% focused on landlord insurance. You are not distracted with homeowner insurance. You're not distracted with auto insurance. Steadily, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, is 100% focused on landlord insurance. Is that correct?
That is all we do. So whatever rental property situation you have, we've seen it 100 times before because all we do is rental property insurance in all 50 states.
So just to be clear, we're talking long-term rental, mid-term rental, short-term rental, all things rental properties. Is that right?
All things rental properties. 20% of our properties are Airbnbs. We just signed a partnership with Furnished Finders, so we're doing a ton of midterm rentals. And the rest is all long-term rentals, single families, duplex, triplex, quadplex, you name it.
Now, just to kind of really narrow in on this to make sure we're on the same page, we are talking residential, or we're talking like multifamily, like I live in this place. We're not talking data centers. We're not talking office buildings. We're not talking mixed use. It's landlord policies.
We're talking about leases by tenants that pay us rent that hopefully are cash flowing.
There you go. There you go. And Steadily is so how does Steadily do this, right? Because I've been seeking to find insurance partners across the country that to be a part of the one rental at a time family. My audience knows that. I can find brokers that are licensed in California or Florida or Texas. What makes Steadily so unique that you really can cover all 50 states? That doesn't sound easy.
It took us 4 years to get there. And
So not
when I
easy.
say not easy, whenever you do anything insurance, you got to have a horizon that's measured in decades, not in years. And for us, the way it literally got started was we sat down and wrote a very long business plan, and we went to the reinsurance industry and we said, "This is our plan. It's going to take us 8 years to execute it. And at the end of those 8 years, we want to be the go-to destination for all rental property investors. And what we're going to need is capacity to be able to go out and write risks that in many cases are going to look a little bit more run down
Mhm.
than a home that folks live in. Because the reality is that when you look at the age of homes that are being used for rental properties, on average, they're going to be seven
Yeah,
to 10
they're
years older since they've been renovated than the owner occupied. But these are still good risks. These are folks need to live in these properties
yeah.
and folks need insurance on those properties. And so it's up to us to be able to uh, set a rate for those properties that people can afford that will be enough to pay for the claims when they inevitably happen and the pipe burst or the fire happens.
Yeah. Just to make sure, just 'cause I want to, we could come to you with obviously with a single family home, obviously with a fourplex. Could we bring you a 10 unit building? Could we bring you a 100 unit building?
You can bring
All
me
things.
you can bring me a 10 unit building, but not the 100. So at some point it
Okay.
turns into a very different type of risk, but our sweet spot is mom and pop landlords. The folks
So
who've got
just so my community gets kind of the bar, where do you want them to stop? Say, hey, if you're going to get over X number, not Steadily. Is that 10 units? Is it
10 units is the max. Our
okay?
sweet spot is 1 to 4.
Okay, so sweet spot again, very much mom and pop, very much residential. And just so I'm clear on the 10, is that 10 units in one building or is that mom and pop with 10 single family homes?
That is a 10 unit building. The
Okay,
biggest portfolio we've ever written insurance on was 672 single family rentals. So we can go big, but it's got to be single family rentals.
I love this. This is very much mom and pop, single family, 1 through 4s is the focus, can go to 10. This is really clearing it up for me because I do have a couple of buildings. I guess I have one building that's technically 210s, two different APNs. I have one building at 18. But again, everything else being kind of residential, makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
and I can explain why we have that focus.
Please.
If
I
you
think
if you
focus
look
is
at a
good, to be clear. Yeah.
if you look at a 10 unit property, or especially even as they get bigger, the variation from property to property gets huge. You
Correct.
get a lot of different stories, a lot of different construction types, a lot of different plumbing. Like the variation is high. And so our ability to underwrite that property in 30 or 60 seconds with a computer model goes to zero. So now we're talking about human underwriters. We're asking you for a lot of documentation and the process
Yeah.
gets slow. Flip side, if you bring us a single family rental where we can look it up on Zillow and see most of the information, then we can plug that into a computer and in 30 seconds we can have an answer for you, which is why when somebody comes to our website, they type in the address, it's going to say, hey, I already know when it was built. I know the square footage. I've already got an estimate of what the property value is. So all you're really typing in is your contact info and it's got a quote for you. You can
Mm,
do that with 1 to 4 unit properties, but once you go bigger, it all becomes custom and then it
yeah.
becomes slow. And we want to be
Yes.
fast. So that's why we're focused on 1 to 4.
I love that. So let's focus on 1 to 4 in this example. So let's pretend I'm a follower of one rental at a time. Let's say I already have a house and I already have insurance. I would tell somebody in the audience, go to Steadily, type in the details, and just compare quotes. Does
Yeah, it'll
that,
take you 60 seconds and you might save 500 bucks.
yeah. And again, one of the things you obviously, I know maybe someone newer to the game doesn't, there's a lot of variations even in policies, deductible coverage, replacement versus full, right? Are these kind of things you need to talk to somebody with, or does the website kind of offer you those choices? How do you get kind of more granular? Because maybe it's not all about cost. Maybe it's about coverage.
Coverage matters a lot. And some folks just want the bare minimum to satisfy their lender. Some folks want to have enough coverage that they're never going to be out more than 500 bucks out of pocket.
Right.
So those options are available. What most people do is they come to the website, 60 seconds, they have their quote, and then they say, I have some questions. I'm not ready to put down my credit card yet. And so then they
Right.
want to talk to somebody. And we've got 50 folks on standby that are available to talk to them in a few seconds. So that's usually what I recommend is if you're a veteran and you bought insurance 3 or 4 times already, you know what you want, go online, get the quote. If it's competitive, buy it and you're done. If it's your
Yep.
first time, call, have a five
Yeah.
minute conversation with an agent and say, hey, here's my situation. It's vacant right now. I'm planning to get some folks in the building, and then I'm going to Airbnb it for a while and convert it to, then I'm thinking about doing like a midterm furnished rental. Like talk through the situation and make sure that you're going to get the
Absolutely.
coverage for your situation. The second piece of advice, folks always ask me, like, what should you ask your agent? Like, look, this isn't all that complicated, but when people need to perk up and think about insurance is when something's changing.
Yes.
If your unit's about to go vacant for a while, if you're about to do some renovations, if you're switching from one type of rental from furnished, to unfurnished or something, just have that 5 minute conversation, send an email because it's the changes when you can get some surprises if this isn't your world.
No, I love that. And again, I love the fact, just like, when I talk to my mortgage brokers and they have contacts, it's you got to just tell your situation, right? This is your insurance provider or whoever's getting you that coverage. Tell them your business plan. I'm buying this. It's a heavy fixer. It's going to be vacant for 60 or 90 days. At the end of that, I'm going to furnish it and then I'm going to turn it into a midterm rental because the coverage could be different, right? A vacant property for 90 days going through a $30,000 remodel needs different coverage than an occupied unit. So tell tell this provider the business plan for the unit so you don't get caught. Is that fair?
It's absolutely fair. Folks sometimes I run into will think like, oh, my tenants, they don't take care of the property and like that's when it's risky, but as long as it's safe because nobody's in there going to be doing damage. That
Yeah,
couldn't be farther from the truth. The riskiest time for a property is when there's nobody in it. Like
absolutely.
vacancies are danger. That's when folks break the windows and get in and try to take the copper pipes.
Hmm.
That's when heater malfunctions and starts smoldering and nobody notices for 8 hours.
Yeah,
Like you want people in the property,
yeah.
and insurance prices reflect that.
Another thing, again, a lot of my students and followers do is they are doing what I call doing the work. They have a buy box. I'm going to buy a 3 bedroom, 2 bath in this zip code, this size. Could they go to Steadily just to go on to get a quote without any further commitment? They don't own the property yet, but they're just saying like, hey, Instead of your case, I thought it'd be 1,000 in Chicago and it was 6,000. Could they go to this website, just put in the address and get, hey, a ballpark number is X? Does that make sense?
Yeah, people do that all day long.
I would think so. Why else should a mom and pop landlord reach out to Steadily? Again, speed obviously makes sense. Are they getting multiple quotes? Or are they just getting one number? Like how much variability we're going to get when we put in the information?
The reason they should come to Steadily is faster, better, cheaper.
Yeah,
At the end of the
it's
day,
that simple.
it's
I love
that
that.
simple. I
Simple.
mean, we recognize that folks need an affordable price on their insurance. They want to make sure that they're covered for all the weird things that are going to happen to their property. And they don't want to spend an hour or a week getting it done. And that's what we deliver.
All right, folks. I'm going to put a link in the description below just for the ORaaT or One Rental at a Time community. I want lots of us to click on this link, put in their addresses of your property. Myself and Olivia will be doing this later today just to check out the application, see what the quotes are. A lot of you are in contract. You should be figuring out and get at least a comparison quote. A lot of you are getting cancellations like I've gotten. We should go to Steadily for this. Let's put in our address and then leave comments below. What did you think? Did it help you? Were you surprised? What's going on? Darren, any closing thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, closing thought. Your policy is written for 12 months. You can cancel it whenever you want. So when you find a better deal and you're 6 months in, switch. Don't wait to renewal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people naturally rate to renewal, which is not always the best case. Again, folks, a lot of you have been reaching out to me. You've been getting cancellations, expired, huge price increases. I think we have found someone that's going to help my community. Again, click the link below, put in your address, and tell me what you got back. I want to hear from you, the audience. Darren, thank you so much. Give a shout out to Dana for making the connection. I think we're going to start helping some people. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.